main brief was initially to undertake a feasibility study to look at what repairs needed to be undertaken to the tower to ensure its preservation for the benefit of future generations. The brief was a scale of all of the different sort of repairs that needed to be done, from the most urgent, including maintenance works to the clock, right up to the full refurbishment project, which is what was carried out in the end. So we did a study to look at the benefits and drawbacks of doing all of the work now, at the beginning of the project, versus delaying the work to the future. And one of the key reasons was the cost of putting the scaffold up, and also the desire to not have a scaffold up for as long a period as possible. So the idea of the major refurbishment project is that the scaffold wouldn't need to be erected again until past the end of the R&R project, and a period of 25 to 50 years.
So this is the clock dial room. We completely stripped the dials of all the glass, and we took off the hands. We blasted back this large cast iron dial, which is essentially like a series of pizza slices, in situ, and then we exposed the metal for the first time since they've been cast, and then we repainted them and reglazed with a new pot opal glass, and we restored the new Prussian blue colour scheme to the outside. We completely stripped the plaster in here because there was an awful lot of water damage, and we had to replace all of that. The 27 light bulbs that were in here originally are now replaced by 54 LEDs, 27 of which are white and 27 are RGB. And we completely stripped all of the stonework in here, from a lot of layers of paint back to this, the bare stone that you see now.
Is this your favourite part of the scheme by any chance?
I think it is, just more because it's such an iconic space. I think you've seen it in many films. And I think it's one of the rooms, as well as the belfry, that people just walk into and they smile.
I joined the project as a Part 2 assistant after graduating from a master's program, and I completed my qualifications while working on the project. So my daily role was, I was based here in London with the team, which was an amazing experience, especially coming directly from university and undertaking my Part 3. I was directly immersed into the team with the client and the multidisciplinary environment that we were working within.
It's a really good place to see the stonework. You can kind of see the patchwork of all of the different phases of stonework that have happened over the years, of the different restorations. As part of this project, we did around several thousand repairs, and we replaced around 800 stones. There are around 8,500 stones that make up the overall building, so we replaced about 10% of them as part of the project. There are 3 different types of limestone on the tower. The one that we used was one called KB. The original was Church Anston, and then there was one in the 50s and the 80s that was called Clipsham, which was a slightly different limestone that was used, but it gives a really nice patina to the trunk of the tower.
And there's an early photograph of you, I think, in the front of the tower. So you were an early visitor to this site, so you've sort of come full circle, haven't you?
Yeah, I think reluctantly. I was being dragged around to many historic buildings by my dad when I was little. But I think it had an impact, and it was really nice to look back at that photo while I was trying to accentuate the lean of the tower and show how much it was leaning, to then come back to it about 30 years later to work on it.
So that's where you caught the bug from your parents being dragged around historic buildings in the main, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. It slowly permeated through, but it was a real big influence on me.
So tell me about what conservation does mean to you then.
It shows the importance, especially within the UK, I think, of preserving our history and preserving our historic buildings. I think we have a really rich heritage, and it's just really great to be part of that and to be part of modern interpretations of conservation and looking at new ways in which we can preserve our past.
And lastly, the 3 words that sum up this project for you would be?
I think it's got to be iconic, gold and teamwork.
It's an incredible honour for me personally, for the whole team at Purcell and everyone else who collaborated on the project. We never really thought that a conservation project would be shortlisted for the Sterling Prize. But I think for us it really shows how the architectural profession has evolved into recognising conservation architecture as a key part of the profession. But also, I think what's really important for us is the way that conservation links to sustainability. So John Ruskin very famously said just before the tower was started its original construction, when we build, let us think that we build forever. And that's what conservation architecture is all about. But if you're building a building to last, it's inherently sustainable. So I think that links very much to our philosophy as architects. The different constituent parts of conservation architecture are all displayed on this project. So there's conservation, which is really about looking after what you have, looking after great architecture. Repair, so if something needs repairing, you repair it with like-for-like materials using the same techniques as it was originally constructed, if possible. Restoration, which is a somewhat more difficult thing to explain, but the clock dials here are an example of restoration. So it's always based on research, so you don't speculatively restore things. So we did historic paint analysis of what the original colour scheme was, and we looked at the original architect's drawings in the ROBA archive with the help of Dr. Mark Collins, the Parliament historian, and ascertained that the Prussian blue was the original colour scheme, and that's what was reenacted here. And then the final part of what we did was new build interventions. So those are very much informed by what's possible within the building without spoiling what's special about it. In Elizabeth Tower we had a vent shaft that went all the way from the basement to the belfry. And that enabled us to install a lift and make some changes at belfry level too, to make it possible to get lift access.
Tell me about your daughter shouting up to you.
It's one of my very fond personal memories of the project. So just at the end of all the COVID lockdowns, when everyone could freely travel again, my wife brought my two daughters down to London to have a look at some of the work that we'd been doing, and they were standing just the other side of the road there. I was up in the belfry, and my youngest daughter shouted up, "That's my daddy up there!" And it really sort of sums up the project with being in the public eye. Everyone around here is always taking photographs to go on Instagram, and that was very much sort of in our mind when we were working on the project. But when everyone started looking at my daughter rather than looking up the tower, it was a very fond personal memory for her as well.